So now we're going to talk about the connective tissue investments of a nerve. And so nerves are part of the peripheral nervous system. So maybe that's something I didn't make it extremely clear. Let me go all the way back to this first slide. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, all of these motor neurons, all of these sensory neurons are going to be located in nerves, either spinal nerves, and if they're a spinal nerve, it's going to and from the spinal cord, or cranial nerves, meaning going to and from the brain. So the peripheral nervous system is made up of spinal nerves and cranial nerves, and they're going to contain motor neurons and sensory neurons. Now, a nerve is a bundle of lots of neurons, lots of axons of neurons. And so what we're looking at here would be a spinal nerve. Now, these connective tissue investments are going to contain a blood supply, which these neurons highly metabolically active, so they're going to need lots of nutrients. So we have a rich blood supply. So surrounding an entire nerve, this connective tissue would be called epineurium. Not mycium. Mycium is muscle. Neurium is nerve. So epineurium. Now here's a cross section through a nerve, and you'll see there are multiple bundles. These bundles are called fascicles. And surrounding a bundle of neurons, okay, this connective tissue would be called perineurium. And then here, if you pull out an individual axon of an individual neuron, the connective tissue surrounding that would be called endoneurium. So same concept as when we talked about the muscles, but this is a nerve, and so it's not mycium, it's neurium. The structures of a spinal cord, you should be able to identify all of these structures on a spinal cord. This is something that you can look at your book, and it has it all labeled. I also have a diagram here for you. I'm not going to go through all the points. That's something that you can do on your own. But what I will talk about is the overall structure of the spinal cord. This is a cross section through the spinal cord. You can see that there's white matter and gray matter. What white matter is myelinated axons. So myelinated axons give a white appearance because myelin is fat. It's lipid, right? So it looks white in appearance. The matter on the inside is gray matter, and it gives a gray appearance because it's unmyelinated axons, as well as cell bodies and dendrites, which are never myelinated ever. Now, the white matter is located on the outside, gray matter located on the inside. In the brain, it's the exact opposite. Gray matter is located more towards the cortex or the outside, white matter located on the inside. These are spinal nerves, all right? And when we talk about reflexes, you will see that this, which is called the the dorsal root. I apologize. This is the dorsal root. This contains sensory neurons, and this would be bringing information in. This, which is the ventral root, would contain motor neurons, and that information would be going out. But if you look right here, they merge to form a spinal nerve. And so this spinal nerve is going to contain both sensory and motor information. So this dorsal root contains just sensory. This ventral contains just motor, but then they merge to form a spinal nerve, which is both sensory and motor information. So how do I know that this is dorsal or posterior and this is anterior or ventral? If you look at this anterior median fissure right here, a fissure is a deep groove, and you can see space in between this groove, so it's a deep groove. So where you see the fissure would be anterior. This is the anterior median fissure, right? This is dorsal or posterior, which you can use those terms. You can say anterior or ventral, dorsal or posterior. Posterior median sulcus is a very tight groove, and so you can't see space in between this groove. A sulcus is a tight groove, so this is posterior. Also, this dorsal root ganglion, which on this dorsal root you see this bulge. A ganglion is a structure in the peripheral nervous system that contains a large group of cell bodies of neurons, right? In the central nervous system, you call a cluster of cell bodies a nucleus. In the peripheral nervous system, you call a cluster of cell bodies a ganglion. So where you see this dorsal root ganglion, it's called dorsal root. So guess what? This is the dorsal side. Now, the gray matter is called, you call these structures horns. And so this is the dorsal horn because it's on the dorsal side. This would be the lateral horn because it's on the lateral side. This would be the ventral horn because it's on the ventral side. White matter is called columns or funiculus for singular, funiculi for plural. And so these would be the dorsal columns. This would be lateral columns. These would be the ventral columns. Okay? This is showing you spinal cord with those structures identified again. This central canal, this is where CSF flows, this central canal, this hole down the very center. I'll point that out again, or I'll point that out. This is showing you that the spinal cord has these layers, okay, and these layers are called meninges or coverings, and they're in the same location as in the brain. So I'm going to switch to this picture. This would be the brain, and the brain is very highly convoluted, and so this would be the invagination of the cerebrum. And so we're going to talk about these meninges, which are also found surrounding the spinal cord as well. Meninges are protective coverings. Now, from the most superficial to the deepest layer, I'm going to talk about the meninges, okay?